All right, here is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in Tafshin Nun Beit, which is the very, very end, like now, the very end of 1991. And the Rebbe especially is going to talk about the Chabad holiday of Yutet Kislev and how it's not just a Chabad holiday, how it's relevant to all mankind, and we're going to see. Now, just a little bit of history over here. A little bit of history. This was in, what is it, 19, I have to look it up and see. 18, I'm sorry, no, 17, I'm sorry. This is the 1700s, right, the end of the 1700s, as the Chabad movement was increasing. It was getting popular, and the teachings of Chabad Hasidut were being spread around. The Hasidic movement already existed, and they already had enemies. There were already enemies, and the enemies called themselves, and for some unexplainable reason, they called themselves the opposition, Misnagdim, Mitnagdim. And the Hasidim they called Hasidim, which really should have been the opposite. The opposition, they should have called themselves Hasidim, because a Hasid means a person that really serves God. And the people that oppose them should have been, namely us, Hasidim, we should have been called the Misnagdim. Okay, for whatever reason it is. So there was tremendous opposition against the Alter Rebbe. And these were great Talmudic scholars, and they had a lot of power spiritually. And they vehemently opposed Chabad movement. The fact is, all of their claims, all their opposition was unfounded. But if the claims were really real, what they made, and so then their anger and their ire and this was justified. They thought he was coming to Chabad was coming to destroy all of Judaism, and that it was coming to make a new religion and to how do you say, belittle the Torah and to this. If they were right, so they, if their ideas were right, then their actions were right. But the fact of the matter is their ideas were not right, and they were not justified by anything except for their own egotism. They just didn't want to change. It's okay. So one of the things, let's go. One of the things about this Shabbat, Parshas Vayishlach. And as I said before, this Torah portion talks about the battle between Yaakov and Esav. One of the things in this week's Torah portion is the beginning. It begins the day before Shabbat, on Friday. Then you're supposed to, it says on Friday, right before Shabbat, you're supposed to taste the food of Shabbat. There's a person and also a person that works, and before Shabbat will have what to eat on Shabbat. What is going to be this Erev Shabbat? It was the same back then, as it is this year. It was the 15th day of Kislev. What's so special about the 15th day of Kislev? 15th day of Kislev, the moon is full. Kaimas Yorad Mishlemusa, the moon is full. Shlemus, that's so to speak the wholeness of the month of Kislev. The moon illuminates the dark, right? And the Jewish people are like the moon. It says in the future, the moon is going to be as bright as the sun. So the fullness of this month of Kislev is on Friday, this coming Friday. And this wholeness, it continues of Motzei Shabbat, which is going to be the 16th, and it comes to the third day of the week, which that's Yutet Kislev. Yutet Kislev is the holiday of the freedom freeing of the release of the first Rebbe of Chabad. Chag HaChagim, it's called the holiday of holidays. Rosh Hashanah, the how do you say, the New Year's Day, the birth of Torah Hasidut. Okay, again, just so that to put this thing in the proper context, we're saying that the goal of the world is that everyone will recognize God. And when everyone in the world recognizes God, also called the Creator, also known as, right, AKA, the Creator, when everybody recognizes that there's a Creator and that the Creator is creating them, and He's creating them for a purpose, and that the Creator gave a book, personally, the only book which is ever given to the Creator, by the Creator to all mankind, which is called the Torah. And it was given in front of millions of witnesses at Mount Sinai. Okay, anyway, when everyone realizes this, then the world will be a very happy and harmonious and efficient place. Huh? Like if your car works, your car works, your computer, when it works, you treat it properly, it works properly, then you're happy. It has a job. It says you have to recognize God. But in order to recognize God, you have to have somebody to teach you what God is, because everybody got it wrong. All these other religions, they got it wrong what God is. Right? They think that God is not involved in the world, or that God changed his mind. Right? There used to be God once didn't want you to kill and didn't want you to steal. Now he changed his mind. It's okay if you kill this. Whatever they have there. So people don't recognize what God is properly. When people recognize God and how that God is creating everyone, that God loves everybody, and that the world is a good place, then the world will be a good place. But you have to recognize God. That's the idea of Hasidut Chabad. The idea of Hasidut Chabad is to get people acquainted with God. First of all, to get acquainted with the spiritual worlds. The spiritual worlds, they're only creations. But when we realize that this physical world is not all there is, there's higher levels of reality than this world, and those levels of reality, there's levels of reality above them, and the whole business is just a big creation. It's a creation, and the creator of the whole thing is higher than this highest levels of spirit. He creates everything, creates all the spiritual, and he cares about what we do. When people realize what that is, then the world becomes a good and harmonious place. That is the goal of Hasidut. That's the idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is going to really make it real. And these are the teachings of the teachings of the Moshiach. I'm sorry. These are the teachings of Moshiach. And therefore the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Moshiach. He is the one that's teaching these deep ideas. Like we said before, Maimonides, at the end of his book, have the criteria of Moshiach. And he says, everyone must be looking for a person like this. So it seems to me it's pretty obvious that it's the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but you can, whoever you want to, you can pick, but it has to be somebody that meets those criteria. What difference does it make if he's the Moshiach? Moshiach as a person, his main thing is to change the world with intellect, to teach the world. That's what we're doing here. Okay. When did this whole Hasidut idea, when did it really burst forth and start to really spread around? That's when the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. Because when he got out of prison, he took this as a sign that his imprisonment was because he was rocking the world. Maybe the world was not ready to bring to accept Mashiach, and therefore he was imprisoned. Right? Everything that happens from God. And when he got out, he realized that was also a sign from God that the opposition was wrong and that they were, how do you say, impotent to stop Hasidut. Now all that remains to do is to spread out Hasidut, try to understand these ideas, at least a little bit. Mailam Yuchedet, that's especially, okay, so how this fits into time. Remember we learned last week about how special it is time, that the second Rebbe of Chabad, he was born and he passed away on the same date, but the time was complete. Time is very important. So therefore, this is especially to Yutet Kislev. It came, the first time it happened, when was the first Rebbe of Chabad, when was he released? It was released on a Tuesday. and it comes out on Yom Shlishi, the third day of the week. And it comes out this year, and also back then when the Rebbe was giving this, our year now, right now, it also comes out Yutet Kislev, this day when the first Rebbe of Chabad was freed from prison, and that was the beginning of his spreading out of Hasidut in a big way. That was on Tuesday, just like this year. Kadibra Rabbeinu Zaken, like the rabbi said, Shaga'ula Yatabi Yom Yutet Kislev Yom Gimel. It was on the third day. The third day of the week is the day, if you look in the beginning of the creation, that's when God said it was good. He said twice, Kitov. I read in the book of Psalms, the Pasuk Para B'Shalom Nafshi, he read on the 55th Psalm. This was the day of the week. It was relevant to this sentence, right in the 25th Psalm, right in the end, 55th Psalm, right in the end of it. So automatically, Chal, Yom Shabbat Kodesh, it was before that, it fell the same date as this year, the 16th day of Kislev. And Erev Shabbat was the 15th day of Kislev when the moon was full. Okay, what does he want all this from this? Since that everything that happens, how much more so something which is so important and general as Yutet Kislev, which is the beginning of teaching of Hasidut, which is the preparation for Moshiach. Since everything happens is directed by God and has a direct message for each one of us, everything that happens, and everything is very exact. It's a positive message to everybody. Therefore it is logical to say that there's some sort of a connection between this, the fact that the 15th day is Friday, the 16th day is Shabbos, and Yutet Kislev falls on the third day of the week, just like it was when the Rebbe got out of prison. That's what it is this year. That it comes from the Shabbat beforehand, by means of working an Erev Shabbat. So the whole week that Yutet Kislev is on is blessed from the Shabbat before, which that comes out to be on the 16th, and Shabbat gets its power from the 15th. Okay, what's all? We don't know what this means yet. And on the 15th, that's when the moon is full, like we're going to explain. Okay, what is the significance of all these things? Right, everything in the world has significance. Hashem will answer this question. How long? Okay, everything that there is in the world that has significance, but we have to figure what it is. Huh? We have to figure out what the there are certain things which are forbidden to learn significance from. Popular things, right? A black cat crossed my path. I walked underneath a ladder. Bad luck. For certain, there is deep Kabbalistic meaning to everything that happens, including the black cat and this, but not the interpretations that are made improperly. Right? Improperly. It's not. Everything should be positive to make us more happy and positive in life. Everything. Dreams, etc. Everything. Dreams go after their interpretation. How much more the Rebbe says that reality goes after the interpretation. There's a positive message in everything. So there must be a positive message here in the fact that Yutet Kislev falls out this year as it was when Rebbe spoke 30 years ago. 32 years ago. They fell out on the same date, let's say day of the week, that it was when the first Rebbe of Chabad got out, and that was preceded by the Shabbat fell on the 16th, and the day before Shabbat was the 15th. What's this got to do with anything? Let's see. This holiday of Yutet Kislev, which is called the holiday of holidays, because it's talking about Moshiach, right? That's the Moshiach's holiday. It's different from all the other holidays. Pesach and Sukkot were set on the 15th day of the month. Pesach is on the 15th of Nisan, and Sukkot is on the 15th, when the moon is full. That's when the moon is full, B'Shleimuta. Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot, when the Torah was given. So in addition to the fact that it says, Lo Tala Chag Hazeh B'Kama Yamim L'Chodesh, this is the holiday which doesn't come on a certain day of the month. Only on the 15th day of the Omer, right? It doesn't say that on the 6th day of Sivan you have to make a holiday. There's no holiday on the 6th day of Sivan. The holiday is 50 days after Passover. You make a holiday. The Rebbe even has a speech about this, that if you go over the international date line and you miss a day, so it could be that you'll Sfirat Omer, the holiday of Shavuot will be a different day than the day when the Torah was given. Could be. You make the holiday of Shavuot not on the 6th day. Okay. 6th day of Sivan. Hari Kaviyato B'Yamei Chodesh is on the days of the month. Sometimes it'll be on the 5th, sometimes it'll be the 6th, sometimes it can even be on the 7th. He Bechetzio Rishon Shel Chodesh, but it's always in the first half of the month. We're talking about the holiday of Shavuot. When the moon, like the Jewish people, are similar to the moon, that they go and they increase. So what's it saying? The holidays, all the holidays are either the middle of the month when the moon is full, or the beginning part of the month. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, in the beginning of the month. Which is not the case, Yud Tet Kislev, and of course Chanukah also. But Yud Tet Kislev, Lozu Bilavad, not only that it is not on the 15th day of the month when the moon is full, but even more, this is in the second half of the month when the moon is getting smaller. Similar and even more so is the holiday of Chanukah. The Chanukah, it says, Einu Kippur. It's not like the holiday of Purim, that the holiday of Purim is always on the 14th and the 15th, when the moon is getting bigger and bigger, or whole. The majority of the holiday of Chanukah, its beginning, and the majority of the holiday is on the last days of the month, from Kafei Kislev and onward, when the moon is getting less and less. True, the end of the month, the end of the holiday of Chanukah is the beginning of the next month of Tevet. Yes, that's true. But the beginning of the holiday of Chanukah, the beginning of Chanukah, is in the end of the month when the moon is getting smaller. So Yud Tet Kislev and Chanukah are the only holidays that are made in the end of the month when the moon gets smaller. Okay, so what? Yesh L'Bayar, let's explain first of all, what does it mean when the moon gets smaller? On the second half of the month, in regarding to the Jewish people. The Jewish people, they count according to the moon. Okay, first of all, let's precede by something. First of all, Kev and Shechetzev Arishon, since the first half of the month, the moon is getting bigger and bigger from day to day. Ubechetzev Hasheni, in the second half of the month, the Jewish month, the moon gets smaller and smaller, the light of the moon. So it should be that the days of the month should get bigger in the beginning, most of the holich, the first day of the month, second day of the month, and the last day of the month should get less. Pochet v'holich, get less and less. 15th, 14th, 12th, right? In the week, days of the week. So we're counting like the days of creation, first, second, third, fourth. But in the days of the month, we're counting according to the moon. So it should be it's how many days the moon is getting bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it gets up to 15, then after that, it should be counting down. The moon is getting smaller, so the numbers should get smaller. Maybe we can say, we can always say, what's the date today? The maximum date could be was the 15th. We could say this is the 15th beginning, the 15th and the end. We could make a note. 15A, 15B, not 15, I'm sorry. 15 is in the middle. 14 could be 14A, which is right before the 15th, or it could be 14B after the 15th. In any case, it should get bigger in the beginning of the month, and the dates should be smaller, less and less, as the moon gets smaller. Ella, but not only does the number of days in the end of the month not get smaller, but exactly the opposite, it increases. It even gets bigger and bigger, even regarding the middle of the month. That when the moon is full, it's 15. And then after the 15th, The moon gets smaller, but the days get bigger. Shabo nechsar, even though the moon is getting smaller and smaller, but the next day after that, we say 16. 16th day of the moon. Month means moon. Mispar echad, it's one more than 15. Uminyan ayom, and the day after that is when there's even less moon revealed. It's the 17th. Two numbers more than 15. Became Alan, so it is ad laminyan the yom acharon until it gets to the last day of the month. That in it the moon is totally concealed. That the last day of the month reaches the highest was 29 or 30. It depends if there's a full month or not. Kamokain similarly, many numbers which are more than 15th. So the moon is the biggest at the 15th, but the numbers of the month, they keep increasing. The moon is getting smaller, but the numbers decrease. The moon decreases and the numbers increase. Why is that? Oh, it's even more. Milavad, in addition to this addition of days, the date in the second half of the month, Mudgash, there's also Eloi, also in the Gematria and the numerical implications. The number Yud Zayin, right, which should be smaller. It's the maximum number of days in the month, of the date of the month should be 15. And after the middle of the month, when the moon gets smaller, so then it should be 14, 13. But it's not, it gets bigger. And not only does the number get bigger, but the implications are also bigger. For instance, 17, which there should never be a number 17 in the month, right? There should be 15, should be the maximum. But we know we keep getting going up. 17 is the gematria of Tov. 18 is the gematria life, Chai. 19 is the gematria of Bitov, in good. Bitov, that's the numerical value of, and then there's 20. 20 is Yud filled up. Yud, Vav, Daled. Yud is 10, Vav is 6, Daled is 4. 20 filled up. 21 is Ach Tov Yisrael. 22 is B'cha in you, Barech Yisrael. The Jewish people are blessed because they're the people of God. B'cha in you. Mispar Kov Gimel, 23. This is Tuvo, in God's good, His good. 24. This is Kadkad, Shimshotayach. Kadkod means like a vessel for godliness. 25, that's 24. 25 is Kotavor Chut Ben Israel. So you should bless the Jewish people. Kavav, 26, that's the number of God's name. 27, that's the number of purity, Zach. Kav Ches is power, Koach. Kav Tes, the days of the month, Shloshim Malay is finished. That's the days of the month. 30 is when there's a full month. If so, the numbers, the implications get better and better and bigger and bigger. Why? The moon is getting smaller. It's getting darker outside. How can the numbers be bigger? Well, it says, Talmud, the reason is, you can say two things. What do we care if it gets bigger? By the non-Jews, it also gets bigger. So what's the big thing? So we know we're basing this on the principle that everything that happens has a positive message to us. What positive message can we learn? That the moon and the light is getting smaller, but the numbers are getting bigger. And not only they're getting bigger, but there's also good implications. The reason for the thing is like this. Even since Sheyeshnu, that there is. Since that there is Tzivuy, a commandment, V'hora, and a teaching, V'netinet koach, and an inspiration, Malim b'kodesh, that we always have to increase in holiness. And how much more so you should never go down in holiness. This is powerful. Every day of the month, also in the second half of the month. The second half of the month, true, it gets darker, the moon gets smaller. It's a little more scary outside. You go out in the nighttime, you can't see as well. But all these negative things are really not negative. We always have to learn must be something holy, an increased level of holiness all the time, that things apparently are getting worse externally. There's something good hidden in there. So therefore, this idea, Mali and Bakodesh, you always have to increase in holiness. And what does it mean, holiness? Holiness means life. It means happiness, meaning. So therefore, the second half of the month, after the moon has already been full, now it's getting smaller. For Yom Yom, every day it gets less and less. There must be a positive message. And there must be an increased positive message and the increasing darkness. According to this, we have to understand the idea of what the moon gets less in the second half of the month, that after the moon is full, it gets smaller and smaller. There's more darkness. At first, this is exactly, how can the moon? We said everything has to increase. Why isn't it the moon does not increase? It says you're supposed to increase in holiness and not go down. And we see that every month we have a message from the moon, and the Jewish people are like the moon, that it does go down and it decreases. What are we supposed to learn from that? Tune in tomorrow and find out. This is the explanation. Now let's learn the Yom Yom for today. Hey, usually I can't find, there we go. No. What happened? Oh, I know. I made a mistake. Made a big mistake. I have to change it to English. There we go. On this day, in 1826, the 10th day of Kislev, the second Rebbe of Chabad, the Mittler Rebbe, was released from his imprisonment in the city of Vitebsk. The reason they called him the Middle Rebbe, the Mittel means the middle Rebbe. They thought there could be three Rebbes. There was the first Rebbe, second Rebbe, and the third Rebbe was the Tzemach Tzedek. They thought for sure he was the Moshiach. There was no doubt that he was the Moshiach. He was a genius in all aspects of the Torah. All the opposition that there was to the two Rebbes was dissipated when he was there. He made friends and he impressed everyone, even the most bitter enemies of Chabad and of Judaism, and all the big officials and everything that were in Russia. And everyone was tremendously impressed by him, and he made tremendous deep effects on everybody. The Tzemach Tzedek, they thought he was going to be the Mashiach for sure. His name was Menachem Mendel also. Menachem Mendel is the gematria of Tzemach Tzedek also. So therefore they called the first Rebbe the old Rebbe, the second Rebbe they called the middle Rebbe, and the third Rebbe they called Tzemach Tzedek. They thought he was the Mashiach, but it didn't exactly pan out that way. But nevertheless, the name remained. During the preceding Chol HaMoed, Sukkot, it became known that the second Rebbe had been slandered. In fact, there was people in his own family, that they were jealous of him. It's a whole terrible story. Anyway, so they had big connections by the Tsar, and they forged papers saying that the Rebbe was sending like millions of dollars, whatever, to the Sultan of Turkey to make a rebellion to fight against the Russians, and there was a whole big war battle there, and that they would make him into the king of the Jews, and the whole thing was a big lie. But he was taken into prison. He was taken into prison one Sunday, Parshat Noach. He left Lubavitcher accompanied by officers. At noon, he arrived in a place called Dob Rom Misil, where he said a mimer. On Monday, he left there, went to the last day. You have to understand, that he was already respected, tremendously respected by the Russian government, because the first Rebbe of Chabad, his father, actively participated in defeating Napoleon. Chabad, we'll talk about that later, but it's very interesting that all of the great leaders of Judaism were in favor of Napoleon. Napoleon was very, very, how do you say, flattering to Jews and to Judaism. And he said that he would release all the Jews from their ghettos, which in fact he did. And that he even said that he would make a Sanhedrin. 500 Jews would make a judicial court, and all the Jews would go back to Israel. He wanted to make bring the Jews to Israel. And all of the great leaders of Judaism were in favor of him. They said he likes us, he'll help us build synagogues, places of learning. The problem is that Napoleon was a big, a super free thinker. And Napoleon was really also a big sorcerer, but that's a secondary thing. He was a person that was tremendously opposed to God and to the religion and everything. He couldn't come out openly and say it because France was a very religious place. But nevertheless, he was. And the first Rebbe of Chabad said that if Napoleon wins, that it'll raise up the glory of the Jewish people, but it'll be a disaster for us spiritually. Already, as it was, Jewish girls, there was almost no such thing. In the time of the first Rebbe of Chabad, and there was almost no such thing as a non-religious Jew. Almost no such thing. All Jews did Torah and the commandments. When Napoleon's forces were taking over, so a lot of the Jewish girls, they were, lured or enamored with the French soldiers. And they were going with the French soldiers. And in France itself, there started intermarriage. It was unheard of in Judaism. Once in a while it would happen, but in a man, so the Alter Rebbe said, if Napoleon wins, it'll be that'll raise the glory of the Jewish people. Yoram Karen Lamishvero. But it'll be a disaster spiritually. And it was a big battle, spiritual battle, between the first Rebbe Chabad and all of the other leaders of the Jews. There were a couple others that were with him, but so they all supported Napoleon against the Tsar, which logically was so, because the Tsar was like super Russian Orthodox, and they were doing everything that they could to make Jews leave Judaism, which that's the whole essence of Christianity, is that there shouldn't be any more Judaism, that they're the new Jews, right? Nevertheless, so obviously everybody was against the church, and they figured Napoleon's going to come and everything will be free. No, it'll be free. There won't be any, especially he's going to fight against the church. That's good, But the free Alter Rebbe said, no, he's going to fight against all feeling of God. Any interpretation of God is better than denying God totally. That's what the Alter Rebbe said. Everybody disagreed with him, but in the end, the Alter Rebbe won. He even sent spies to spy, and they gave information to the Tsar that told him where certain caches of armament were of Napoleon. However, it was the second Rebbe of Chabad was slandered. The charges were accepted, they were believed, but he was put in much better conditions than the first Rebbe of Chabad. The charges were much more severe. Excuse me. Anyway, finally, he was imprisoned until the Sunday of this week's Torah portion, like now, the 10th of Kislev, exactly like now. He was released today, and this day was Sunday, and was today, this day. That was when he was released. Big holiday on Chabad. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, we'll meet again today at 3 o'clock. Anyone who wants to, with a Sicha of the Rebbe. And I'll also put up last year's Chumash Shir, Chumash class with Meforshim. Shalom Avracha, Chag Sameach, everybody. Have a happy holiday. We need Moshiach now. Yechia Melech. Long live the King, the Rebbe.